This is Sony's Grand Seiko. If you understand that reference, you know what I'm talking about. Let's get into it. Just to let you know, Sony Singapore loaned me the camera for a couple weeks. I'm not paid or sponsored. My thoughts only. But this has been a camera that I've been wanting to get my hands on ever since it was announced last year. And yeah, I mean, so many of you out there have been talking about this camera, the price point, how does it compare to the Q3 or other cameras out there? But I think people are missing something about this camera that makes it very, very special. And yeah, it's different from the offerings from other manufacturers out there, but it also offers something that no other manufacturers bring to the table. And I think instead of talking about what it doesn't have or what it's missing, I'm gonna focus on what it does do and why I think this is a great camera for a lot more people than some of the other reviewers have talked about. So with that, let's get into talking about the RX1R III. Now, I've not used an RX1R system at all. I never used the 1, never used the 2. But when this was announced, I was quite intrigued. I mean, obviously, you know, for me on this channel is using a lot of Leica cameras, M, Q, SL, whatever have you. And I understand the joy of those cameras, but I also understand the frustrations of those cameras. Case in point, autofocus. Sometimes just not getting the shot, you know, struggling with certain technology. But yeah, it has great build quality, has great optics. But so does Sony. And this camera, which I haven't heard anybody talk about, if I'm not mistaken, is the only Sony camera, at least in the prosumer line, that's made in Japan. The rest are made in Thailand, like the A9 III that I use, made in Thailand. And when you pick it up, well, actually, when you open the box, you realize this is a very different camera than what other Sony cameras are packaged like and how they're presented. This gives you a sense of premium quality, sense of something special. And that was my first impressions of it. I mean, I opened up the box and obviously it's wrapped. It's got more of that kind of eco-friendly wrapping and all that. And yeah, it's not my favorite thing, but it is what it is. But then you open it up, you've got the eye cup for the extension piece here. You have the more rubber so it kind of, you know, blocks out the light. You have 2 batteries, at least in my kit that I had. Then you had a velvet pouch with that magnetic fabric that you can store the camera in. I've never seen that from any other camera manufacturer out there. Beautiful strap. All that's included. So when you get this camera in your hand, you're seeing the premium aesthetics that Sony wants you to see with the RX1R III. But let's talk about the build quality. This is a very well-made camera. Extremely well made. And I know people compare it to a Leica Q or a Leica camera system and saying, oh, it's not the same. And sure, there are differences. But this is a really nice made camera. Every button, every dial, every switch is precise. Again, it's like owning a Grand Seiko versus a normal Seiko watch. Both tell the time, but both do it a little bit differently. This camera is very premium. And you have to take this in consideration. The engineering to get it this small. You don't understand how small this camera is until you put it next to other cameras out there. I put it next to an M11. This is smaller. I put it next to my Sigma BF. This is smaller. This is extremely tiny for a 61 megapixel full frame camera with an EVF. That in itself is an engineering marvel, and I feel that it's being discounted because everybody's focusing on the price and not on what has gone into it to make it this good. On top of that, you're getting the latest processors from Sony at the time of this recording, because obviously there's something coming out on the 13th. I'm recording before the 13th. You're getting the latest autofocusing algorithm. Yes, the lens is the same from 10 years ago or whatever have you. But you know what? There's other manufacturers out there that are using the same lens from 10 plus years ago and nobody's complaining. People buy vintage lenses because they want character, they want something different. And this lens gives you that. Yeah, autofocus could be a little bit faster, but this is not a camera that you're gonna be shooting sports with or wildlife with, so who cares? Daily photography, you're not gonna miss a beat. It's good, it's fantastic. It's sharp in the center. It's got beautiful fall off, great character. And the pipeline, the image quality pipeline that Sony's put into this, along with a lot of their newer cameras, the whole thing about colors and everything else, it's out the window as of 2025, 2026, in my opinion. This camera is right up there. In terms of the size. Now I've got larger hands, right? Now, obviously I would probably want a grip for this, and there's grips, the third-party grips and thumb rests that you can get, and Sony sells their accessories as well too. But you know, the thing about this camera that stood out to me using it was like I didn't need to carry a camera bag for the first time in how many years of testing cameras, you know, because it's so small you can put it into like a bum bag, you could put it into your jacket coat, and it gets out of the way. And that's what this camera is designed to do. Get out of the way, capture the moment, and move on. It's not designed to fiddle and try to find the right setting to capture the image, and then boom, the moment's gone. But Sony has found a way to blend modern technology with fantastic craftsmanship and nail it. And they've done that with this. So how do I use this camera system? You know, a lot of the times I'm just using the display because it is so small. I'm not using the EVF that much. It's all the display. I'm just moving it around and capturing images and then going on. And now the EVF is nice, especially in situations where you don't want the display or you want to get up close just to make sure that you're in focus. But yeah, that's how I take photos with it. Very similar to the Sigma BF that I have. Now, some people complain that it doesn't have a flip out display, but it doesn't bother me because it's so small that if you would have it, you'd have to like take it and open it up and put it back in and then take the photo. And it feels like that's getting in the way of capturing the moment, at least from my perspective. Now, some of you might be thinking I'm making excuses, but I'm not. It's just that you have to use the camera for a period of time to understand that sometimes removing features actually frees you to capture the image that you want to have. And the display is bright, it's vibrant, great sharpness to it, and the EVF is absolutely fantastic. So with the EVF here, I can see everything fine. Now again, it's not the highest resolution EVF, but it definitely does do the job. And I don't think unless you're comparing it to another Sony camera, another camera system out there with a higher res EVF, you're not gonna notice the difference. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't do EVF comparisons with 2 cameras and 3 cameras and carry them around and going, oh, this is less than or that. I don't do that. Maybe you do, I don't. If this is the only camera that I have with me, this is the only EVF I'm using. And that EVF is good enough. So yeah, I am not missing a beat with this EVF. Man, you know, the interesting thing about this lens as you're looking through this at f2 is just the bokeh. It's got character to it. It's got a little bit of that Zeiss pop that just other lenses out there don't have. And yeah, man, it's really cool. And plus the simulations, the color simulations in there, you've got these different film looks, which are great. And I've shown you, shown you a few images here throughout this video with those looks. And the black and white is fantastic. FL, FL2, FL3, the kind of these 3 different film looks, which you can adjust as well, are really, really nice. And it just adds another experience to the camera system. And again, these are now updated to other Sony Alpha cameras out there. So it's not just the RX1R III. But it's nice that it's in here because this camera really shines with, features like that. And this large EVF cup here is awesome. I actually put that on the A9 III that I'm using right now as well too, because I saw it on the A1 II, and it just blocks out the light beautifully, and it just kind of brings you into the moment. So when you want that EVF, you have it there. Oh, by the way, in the lenses, there's macro mode on this too, so you can go from 0.2 to 0.35 meters, and then obviously close focus on this is 0.3 meters to infinity for the normal mode. One of the limitations of this camera system is going to be the shutter speed, and that's probably one of the issues with this sensor at this point in time. We saw it in the A7R5, the A7CR, and you're seeing it here with the RX1R III, and that's because you just don't get the faster readout on this sensor. So there are going to be some limitations. However, and from my experience with both the A7R5 and the A7CR, is the dynamic range out of this sensor is so good. There are times that I actually overexpose an image to the point where in any other camera system out there, it would have been blown out. You couldn't even rescue anything. But with this sensor, you can pull down that information and boom, everything is there. I'll show you a sample. I still have it from the A7CR here to give you an idea of the original image, how much it was blown out, and to what I was able to rescue and still maintain detail, sharpness, color, all that is there. The way that Sony has maximized this sensor, even if you do overexpose, you're gonna be okay. Also, you have an exposure dial on this thing too, and your ISO, the lowest is ISO 50. So when you take all those 3 things in consideration, you're gonna be okay for the most part. I mean, I don't know about you, but I tend not to take photos in bright daylight, because number 1, nobody really looks good because the sun is right on top and coming down, so it doesn't really look great. Number 2 is, You don't get that nice color tonality, that depth as you would in, lower light situations, sunset, sunrise, or whatever have you. So it's not really a big deal for me. I mean, I've had this camera for a couple of weeks. I've never come across a situation where I'm like, oh man, I can't maximize this because the shutter speed maxes out at 1/2000. I haven't had that. I want to take a moment to talk about the cropping capabilities on this. This is a 61 megapixel sensor. So even when you crop into, let's say 50 millimeters or 70 millimeters, which you can do on this, you still have a lot of flexibility in these files. So yeah, I mean, there is something about fixed lens cameras, which it does feel limiting psychologically, but when you realize how much room you have to play with, it's actually okay. Now again, at f2, yeah, it's not as bright as some other lenses out there, but f2 is still gonna give you really nice depth of field. And it's great for portraiture because even like if you're stopping down to, let's say 1.4, 1.2, whatever have you, if you're focusing on someone's face and you're close up, you still have to stop down to get the entire face in focus. And I think f2 is kind of that sweet spot. So yeah, look, I've had no issues with it. I've cropped in a lot on the images and the resolution is there. So let's talk about lack of stabilization. Is it a deal breaker? No, it's not. I use cameras even today that don't have stabilization. M11, BF, they don't have stabilization. I still can get the photo. Is it something that you need to be concerned about? Not really, because actually Sony's thought about some of these things because in the ISO settings, you have a minimum shutter standard that's kind of like preset there for you. So it doesn't bring the shutter all the way down and it kind of gives you a little bit of room so you're not gonna get, camera shake. So I think you're gonna be okay with that. And plus, it's also about knowing how to hold a camera, elbows in, balance, kind of put a little bit of bend in your legs, keep it up here, take a breath, hold it, take a photo. Kind of like using a gun, very similar, right? And that's how you get steady shots. And people, when they review cameras, they'll always look for something to complain about. I look for what it does for you. And for me, this camera just allows me to bring something better than my smartphone, see the world, capture moments, put it away, and move on. And that's what the RX1R does so brilliantly. And that's the luxury of this camera. People can talk about build quality, they can talk about comparing to other cameras out there at different price points. But what Sony's done with their engineering, their technology, when you see the entire package and you actually use it, you find out they've done something very special. But we do have to talk a little bit about price because it is something to discuss. It depends on where you're buying the camera from. If you're in America, I believe it is more expensive than other parts of the world. And if you're in Japan, for example, it's less expensive, but it's predominantly in Japanese language only. So you have a little bit of a hiccup there. Look, a lot of cameras nowadays are premium. Let's face it, even Leica keeps raising their prices. I mean, here in Singapore, this camera is 6,000 Singapore dollars and the Q3 is almost 10,000 Singapore dollars. So that's a $4,000 difference. And now if you were to compare that, obviously this is gonna be a much more cost-effective camera versus the Leica. In other markets, it may be a little bit different. With that said, they're different cameras and there's nothing this size in the marketplace with this kind of performance right now. There just isn't. This is a very small camera. And I keep repeating that in this video because that's one of the main things that makes this camera so special is the performance, is the size, is the engineering that's inside of it that makes it very special. So if you're worried about price or thinking about price, look, you got to take all those things in consideration. But look, there's second-hand units to be had. There's other ways to find discounts out there. You just got to be a little bit creative. But, always look out for the warranty, make sure that you're covered. But look, no two ways about it. This is going to be a more premium camera than other Sony cameras out there. And I understand it because people always look at Sony as a workhorse camera versus something of a premium build. But something made in Japan that's built like this, that's designed like this, that performs like this, it's going to cost you. All right, before we wrap this up, I do want to talk a little bit about the video features on this thing. Now, it can do 4K video, and it's pretty decent video quality on this. Autofocus is bang on. I get no stabilization, but there is some sort of electronic stabilization inside the camera system, so that's going to help you out. And I wouldn't use this as my primary video camera, but it's more than adequate to get the shots that you need or even record a YouTube video. You definitely can do that. You just probably want to put onto a tripod, or if you want to handhold it, you know, just do a bit steady, but it does a decent job. Overall though, this camera, I'm sad to give it back. I mean, I have to give it back right after this video. I got to hand it back to Sony Singapore because I've really enjoyed using it. And if I can find a good one, like good secondhand one on the market that's not as expensive because I'm on a bit of a budget right now, I would definitely pick this up. And this would be a great travel companion for me. And I would highly recommend this camera for a lot of people out there that are looking for something small, compact, very powerful. The 60 megapixel sensor gives you so much cropping power that you can do the different crops inside of this, 35, 50, 70, whatever have you. And also you can crop it in post. But this sensor is so good that it gives you a lot of flexibility. And yeah, you might run into some situations where you're gonna be maxed out on your shutter speed, but just stop it down. F4 is not that big of a deal. There's ND filters out there that you can get. It's not the end of the world. There are always options out there. Every camera will have its limitations. There's no camera that is unlimited, but this camera delivers. And if you're one of those that can appreciate this, you're gonna really like the RX1R III. But anyway, guys, if you like this video, like, subscribe. Thank you for the support, and I'll chat to you all very, very soon. Bye.